The first attack from the hierarchy vessels was unlike anything Jake Morrison had ever imagined. Instead of energy beams or missiles, they fired something that looked like liquid darkness. The black substance spread through space toward the combined human ships, eating light itself as it moved. "Shields up," Jake ordered, though he wasn't sure what good conventional shields would do against whatever was coming at them. Helen's hands moved across the ancient control panels. "These are not shields as you know them, Captain. The eternal vigilance protects itself by existing in multiple realities at once." The darkness hit their position and passed right through them harmlessly. Jake felt a strange sensation, as if part of him had stepped sideways out of normal space for just a moment. "Direct hit, no damage," Lisa reported from engineering. "Captain, I don't understand how, but we're not entirely in this dimension anymore," Helen nodded. "The ship shifted us partially into parallel space. The hierarchy's weapon cannot affect what it cannot fully perceive." Sovereign Zephyros appeared on their communication screen again, his energy form flickering with what looked like surprise. "Impossible. That weapon has destroyed entire star systems." "Your weapons were designed to fight conventional matter," Helen replied calmly. "My creators learned to fight on your level." Jake felt the ship's weapon systems connecting to his thoughts. He could sense massive energy cannons that fired concentrated reality itself, missiles that could chase targets through time, and devices that could turn an enemy's own power against them. "Return fire," Jake commanded. The eternal vigilance fired. A beam of pure white light that struck the lead hierarchy vessel. Instead of exploding, the enemy ship began to flicker and fade, as if it was forgetting how to exist. "What did we just do to them?" Bobby asked from his sensor station. "Probability cascade failure," Helen explained. "The weapon makes their ship's existence increasingly unlikely until reality decides they were never there at all." The other hierarchy vessels immediately changed their formation, spreading out to avoid the same fate. They began firing different weapons, beams of energy that twisted space itself into impossible shapes. "Multiple attacks incoming," Ryan warned. "They're targeting different dimensional layers." Jake guided the ship through evasive maneuvers that took them through spaces that normal physics said couldn't exist. They moved up, down, sideways, and through directions that had no names, dodging attacks that followed them across multiple realities. The battle continued for several minutes before Kate Murphy called out from her communication station. "Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the galaxy. More hierarchy vessels are appearing everywhere." The main screen changed to show a galactic map covered in red dots. Hundreds of hierarchy ships were materializing near every major human colony and allied world. "They're not just attacking us," Amy realized. "They're attacking everyone who might help us." Helen's expression grew grim. "The hierarchy has decided that this threat must be eliminated completely. They are beginning a full harvest cycle, something they have not done for millions of years." Jake watched as reports came in from across human space. The hierarchy vessels were appearing over Earth, Mars, the outer colonies, and even near the home worlds of humanity's alien allies. Each ship was broadcasting the same message: surrender immediately or face extinction. "Admiral Blake is on emergency communication from Earth," Kate announced. The screen showed Admiral Susan Blake, head of Earth's Space Defense Force, sitting in what looked like a military bunker. "Captain Morrison, what have you gotten us into?" "There are 12 of those energy ships in Earth orbit, and they're demanding we surrender something called the Guardian Protocol." "Admiral, we've discovered an ancient human weapons system," Jake replied. "The enemy you're seeing calls themselves the Hierarchy. They've been secretly controlling galactic civilization for millions of years. That's impossible, Admiral Blake said. We've had contact with dozens of alien species. None of them mentioned any galactic rulers. Helen stepped into view of the communication system. Because every species that discovered the truth was harvested before they could warn others. The hierarchy allows young civilizations to develop only until they become useful food sources. On the screen, Admiral Blake's face went pale. Food sources? They consume the life energy of entire worlds, Helen explained. Every species that achieved spaceflight and then mysteriously vanished from galactic records was actually murdered by the hierarchy. Billions of civilizations, trillions of sentient beings, all converted into energy to feed these parasites. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. What do you need from us? Time, Jake replied. And trust. This ship has weapons that can fight them, but we need to learn how to use them properly. Amy was studying the sensor readings from across the galaxy. Helen, are there any other Guardian ships? Did your creators build more than one? The eternal vigilance is unique, Helen replied. My creators poured everything they had into creating one perfect weapon rather than many lesser ones. However, the ship can create additional Guardian vessels if given sufficient resources and time. Bobby looked up from his station with excitement. Captain, I'm picking up something strange. Several of the hierarchy ships near alien homeworlds are reporting problems. Their targets aren't just surrendering. The main screen changed to show a battle taking place near the Kethran Republic's capital world. The normally peaceful Kethrans had somehow armed their ships with weapons that could actually damage hierarchy vessels. How are they doing that? Ryan asked. Helen smiled. It appears that not all of the ancient knowledge was lost. Some species retained fragments of Guardian technology without understanding what they possessed. Kate's communication board lit up with incoming messages. Captain, we're receiving transmissions from the Valdari Confederation, the Kethran Republic, and 6 other species. They're asking for our help. Jake made a quick decision. Helen, can this ship split itself? Can we help multiple locations at once? The Eternal Vigilance can create projection vessels, Helen replied. Smaller ships that carry a portion of my consciousness and Guardian technology. They would not be as powerful as the main vessel, but they could provide significant assistance, Lisa called from engineering. Captain, I'm detecting something else. The hierarchy ships are changing their tactics. They're not just demanding surrender anymore. They're beginning to drain energy from inhabited worlds without permission. The main screen showed horrifying images from multiple planets. Cities were going dark as their power sources were drained. People were collapsing as their life energy was pulled away. Entire continents were falling into darkness as the hierarchy began their harvest. They're not waiting for surrender, Amy realized. They're taking what they want by force. Helen's form blazed brighter with anger. They have decided that secrecy is no longer necessary. After millions of years of hiding, they are revealing their true nature. Jake felt the ship's weapon systems responding to his growing fury. Then let's show them what happens when they threaten innocent people. The Eternal Vigilance began to glow with power that made the local star look dim. Energy cascaded through the ship's systems as ancient weapons came online that had not been used since the dawn of galactic civilization. All stations prepare for maximum combat operations, Jake announced. Helen, begin creating those projection vessels. We're going to save as many worlds as we can. Captain, Helen said, once we begin this war in earnest, there will be no turning back. The hierarchy will commit everything they have to destroying us. Jake looked at the images of suffering on the main screen, then at his crew. Each of them nodded their agreement without hesitation. Then we better make sure we win, Jake said. Begin deployment of Guardian vessels. Target every hierarchy ship. That's attacking civilians. The ancient human warship began to split apart, creating dozens of smaller vessels that carried Helen's consciousness and Guardian weapons to threatened worlds across the galaxy. Each one moved faster than light itself, disappearing from normal space and reappearing wherever innocent lives were in danger. The real war between humanity and the gods had begun, and this time, the gods were not fighting helpless primitives. They were fighting the inheritors of the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever known. The Pioneer moved slowly toward the massive entropy swarm, while the surviving alien ships watched from a safe distance. On the bridge of his damaged flagship, Fleet Admiral Corvin stared at his screens in disbelief. "What are the humans doing?" he asked his tactical officer. "Are they trying to surrender?" "I don't think so, sir," came the reply. "They're on a direct attack course toward the center of the swarm." Admiral Zektar, speaking from his escape pod, opened a channel to the human ship. "Captain Morrison, what are you doing? Fall back immediately. That swarm will tear you apart in seconds." "Thank you for the concern, Admiral," Morrison replied calmly. "But we have a job to finish." Commander Theiss, floating in the wreckage of her crystalline flagship, watched the small human ship approach the enemy formation. "This is madness," she whispered. "They're going to die for nothing." On the Pioneer, Dr. Hayes was watching streams of data flow across his screens as Lazarus analyzed the entropy swarm. The AI system was learning everything it could about the enemy formation, their weapons, their tactics, and most importantly, their adaptive patterns. "Captain," Hayes reported, "Lazarus has identified the swarm's learning algorithm. They adapt by analyzing incoming attacks and modifying their defenses accordingly. But the system has a weakness." "What kind of weakness?" Morrison asked. "They learn too well," Hayes explained. "The swarm expects every attack to follow logical patterns. They're designed to counter organized, predictable military tactics. But what if we don't use organized tactics?" Morrison smiled. "What if we use chaos instead of order?" "Exactly," Hayes said. "Lazarus is ready to implement Strategy 7. Lieutenant Rodriguez was making final adjustments to the ship's systems in the engine room. To anyone watching, it would look like the Pioneer was falling apart. Steam was pouring from the vents, sparks were flying from control panels, and warning lights were flashing all over the ship. But underneath the apparent chaos, every system was working perfectly. The adaptive matrix was reconfiguring the ship's entire structure in real time. The fusion reactor was preparing to output more power than should have been physically possible. "All systems ready for transformation," Rodriguez reported. "The aliens are about to see what human engineering really looks like." Commander Parker was in the weapons bay, activating equipment that looked like it belonged in a scrapyard. The cargo launchers loaded their first rounds, pieces of metal that appeared to be random junk but had been precisely engineered for maximum effectiveness. "Weapons ready, Captain," Parker announced. "Let's show them how humans fight." The entropy swarm detected the approaching human ship and began to prepare its defenses. Millions of drones turned their weapons toward the Pioneer, ready to destroy it with the same adaptive tactics that had defeated the alien fleet. But instead of firing conventional weapons, the Pioneer began launching what looked like garbage into space. Old metal plates, defunct satellites, and empty cargo containers flew out of the ship's launchers in seemingly random directions. "What are they doing?" Zektar asked in confusion. Are they throwing trash at the enemy? The swarm's AI tried to analyze the incoming objects and adapt its defenses accordingly. But there was nothing to adapt to. The metal plates weren't weapons. They were just pieces of metal. The satellites weren't bombs. They were just electronic equipment. The cargo containers weren't missiles. They were just empty boxes. The enemy. Drones fired at the objects, destroying most of them easily. But as they did, something unexpected happened. The metal plates unfolded into kinetic interceptors that rammed into enemy ships at incredible speeds. The satellites activated jamming systems that confused the swarm's sensors. The cargo containers released clouds of tiny machines that began eating the enemy drones from the inside. Impossible, Theiss breathed. They're using adaptive technology, but it's not like anything we've ever seen. The swarm tried to counter the human attack, but every time it adapted to one threat, another completely different type of attack hit it. The tiny machines that were eating the drones suddenly started replicating, using enemy materials to build more of themselves. The kinetic interceptors changed their approach patterns, striking from angles the swarm couldn't predict. Morrison watched his tactics display as the battle unfolded. Hayes, how is Lazarus performing? Beyond all expectations, Captain, Hayes replied. The swarm keeps trying to adapt to our attacks, but we're not using consistent tactics. Every attack is completely different from the last one. The Pioneer itself began to transform. Hull sections moved and reconfigured. Hidden weapon systems emerged from compartments that hadn't been visible before. The ship that had looked like a piece of junk now revealed itself as one of the most advanced vessels ever built. My God, Corvin whispered. The human ship is changing shape. How is that possible? Rodriguez's voice came over the comm. Captain, the adaptive matrix is operating at full capacity. We can reconfigure any system on the ship in real time. The Aitao transformation was incredible to watch. The Pioneer's weapons emerged from hidden bays, its armor plating shifted to deflect incoming fire, and its engines modified themselves to provide impossible amounts of power. But most importantly, the ship never looked the same twice. Every time the entropy swarm tried to learn how to fight the Pioneer, the ship had already changed into something completely different. It was like trying to fight an opponent who could become a new person every few seconds. Parker's modified weapon systems were devastating the enemy formation. Rock cutters sliced through drone hulls like they were made of paper. Cargo launchers fired projectiles that split into smaller pieces, just before impact multiplying the damage. Even the ship's maintenance robots had been turned into weapons, swarming over enemy drones and dismantling them piece by piece. The swarm is breaking apart, Hayes reported excitedly. Their central coordination is failing. The entropy swarm had been designed to learn from every attack and become stronger. But the human tactics were so chaotic and unpredictable that the AI couldn't process them fast enough. The more it tried to adapt, the more confused it became. The tiny replicating machines that Rodriguez had designed were spreading through the enemy formation like a virus. But unlike the swarm's own adaptive technology, these machines were designed to evolve faster than any AI could counter them. They learned from the swarm's attempts to stop them and became even more effective. Within 3 hours, the mighty entropy swarm was completely destroyed. 12 million combat drones reduced to floating debris by a single human ship that everyone had thought was a piece of junk. The Pioneer emerged from the wreckage field, its hull bearing new scars, but its crew victorious. The surviving alien ships approached slowly, their commanders speechless. "This is Admiral Zektar to the human ship," came a shaky transmission. We owe you our lives. How did you do it? Morrison smiled as he looked out at the debris field. Admiral, you spent thousands of years perfecting the art of organized warfare, but sometimes the best strategy is to have no strategy at all, Thadi. Galaxy would never underestimate human engineering again. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez stood in the engine room of the Pioneer, her hands working on a panel that looked like it had been hit by lightning. Sparks flew from the connections as she carefully adjusted the settings. To anyone watching, it would look like she was trying to fix a broken system. In reality, she was fine-tuning one of the most advanced pieces of technology in the galaxy. "How are we looking, Amy?" Captain Morrison asked over the comm system. "All systems are running perfectly, Captain," Rodriguez replied. "The adaptive matrix is online and ready. The aliens have no idea what they're looking at." She smiled as she looked at the engine core. It appeared to be a simple fusion reactor held together with metal patches and jury-rigged repairs. But hidden inside the rough exterior was a revolutionary power system that could change its output and configuration in real time. Dr. Hayes had spent 5 years developing the technology, and it had taken another 3 years to make it look like junk. In the ship's small laboratory, Dr. Peter Hayes was running final checks on Project Lazarus. The main computer looked like an old desktop unit that someone had pulled from a scrapyard. Cables and wires hung out of it in all directions. A few of the panels were held on with actual duct tape. Hayes typed commands into the system, watching as streams of data flowed across his screen. The computer was processing information faster than any alien supercomputer, but it did so quietly, without any of the flashy lights or dramatic displays that other species seem to love. "Lazarus is ready," Hayes said to himself. "Let them laugh at our primitive technology." The heart of their secret weapon was an artificial intelligence that learned from every battle, every mistake, every victory. Unlike the static computer systems used by the aliens, Lazarus could adapt and evolve. During combat, it could turn weaknesses into strengths and find solutions that no traditional military mind would ever consider. Commander Lisa Parker sat in the weapons control room, checking their arsenal one more time. To an outside observer, it would look like a collection of mining equipment and industrial tools. There were rock cutters, metal grinders, cargo launchers, and what appeared to be a collection of spare parts from a dozen different machines. The aliens had no idea that every piece of equipment had been carefully modified and tested. The rock cutters could slice through the strongest armor. The cargo launchers could fire projectiles at speeds that would make alien weapons look slow. Even the spare parts had been designed to serve multiple purposes in combat. "All weapons systems ready," Parker reported. "The aliens are going to be very surprised when they see what these tools can do." On the bridge, Morrison sat in his captain's chair and watched the alien fleets prepare for the demonstration. Through the view screen, he could see the massive ships moving into position. The Vorthak dreadnoughts were enormous monsters covered in weapons. The crystalline ships flickered in and out of normal space like ghosts. The Hive Collective had deployed swarms of smaller ships that moved like angry insects. All of them were impressive in their own way. All of them represented thousands of years of military development and technological advancement, and all of them were about to learn a hard lesson about underestimating humans. Morrison's comm system buzzed. It was Admiral Zektar calling from his flagship. "Human Captain," Zektar's voice boomed through the speakers. "I have been thinking about your participation in today's exercises. Perhaps it would be better if you simply observed from a safe distance. We would not want your ship To be damaged by accident. That's very thoughtful of you, Admiral, Morrison replied. But we came here to participate, not watch. I understand your pride, Zektar said. But pride will not protect you from quantum torpedoes. My weapons could vaporize your entire ship without even trying. I'm sure they could, Morrison agreed. But the targets we're shooting at today aren't shooting back, are they? There was a pause on the comm. No, they are not. But still, it would be embarrassing for Earth if your ship suffered a malfunction during the demonstration. We'll take that risk, Morrison said. The Pioneer has never let us down before. After Zektar ended the call, Morrison turned to his crew. They're still trying to get us to back down. That tells me they're more worried about this than they're letting on. Maybe they're afraid we'll make them look bad, Rodriguez suggested. Maybe, Morrison said. Or maybe they're afraid of something else. On another channel, Commander Thies was speaking with her officers about the human ship. I've scanned their vessel multiple times, she told them. The readings make no sense. Their power output is inconsistent, their weapon signatures are unclear, and their defensive systems appear to be completely random. Perhaps their technology is simply too primitive for our sensors to understand, one of her officers suggested. Perhaps, Thies said. But in my experience, when something doesn't make sense, it usually means you're missing important information. She had been a military commander for over 200 years. She had fought in dozens of battles and seen every type of weapon and defense system in the galaxy. But the human ship was different. It didn't follow any of the standard patterns that she had learned to recognize. Keep scanning them, she ordered. I want to know everything about that ship before the exercises begin. But the more her sensors probed the Pioneer, the more confused her officers became. The ship seemed to change its readings every few minutes. Sometimes it appeared to be barely functional. Other times it showed power levels that should have been impossible for a ship that size. Ma'am, her sensor officer reported, I'm getting readings that suggest their ship is learning from our scans. Learning? Thies asked. What do you mean? Every time we scan a different system, their responses change. It's as if their ship is adapting to our sensor frequencies in real time. Thies stared at the data on her screen. If the humans had developed adaptive technology, it would explain why their ship was so difficult to analyze. But adaptive systems were theoretical at best. No one had ever managed to build one that actually worked. Continue monitoring, she ordered, and prepare our dimensional strike systems. I have a feeling today's demonstration is going to be more interesting than expected. Back on the Pioneer, Hayes was making final adjustments to Lazarus. The AI system was already analyzing the alien ships, learning their strengths and weaknesses from the sensor data it was collecting. By the time the exercises began, Lazarus would know more about alien military technology than most alien commanders knew themselves. How much longer until the demonstration starts? Rodriguez asked over the comm. Morrison checked his chronometer. 30 minutes. Is everyone ready? Engineering is ready, Rodriguez replied. Weapons are ready, Parker added. Lazarus is ready, Hayes confirmed. Morrison nodded and opened a channel to the exercise controllers. This is Captain Morrison of the UES Pioneer. We are ready to begin whenever you give the word. The alien controllers seemed surprised that the humans were actually going through with the demonstration. There had been bets placed on whether the Pioneer would even launch from the docking bay. Understood, Pioneer, came the reply. You will be assigned Target Group Gamma. Please proceed to the starting position and await the signal to begin. Morrison guided his ship away from the station and toward the target field. Behind them, the massive alien fleets were also moving into position. The demonstration was about to begin, and the humans were ready to show the galaxy what human engineering could really do. The aliens were still laughing and making jokes about the small, ugly ship that looked like it might fall apart at any moment. They had no idea that they were about to witness something that would change their understanding of warfare forever. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, staring at the massive screen in front of him. 3 months into their deep space mission, they had found something impossible. Floating in the dark void between galaxies was a ship, unlike anything he had ever seen. "Lisa, what are your sensors telling us?" Jake asked his chief engineer. Lisa Park looked up from her control panel, her face showing confusion. "Captain, this doesn't make sense. The ship is there, we can see it clearly. But our scanners are picking up nothing. It's like the hull is eating our scanning beams." The mysterious vessel was enormous, easily 3 times the size of their exploration ship. Its surface was smooth and black, with strange patterns that seemed to shift when nobody was looking directly at them. The ship had no visible engines, no weapons, and no signs of life. "How long has it been drifting out here?" Jake wondered aloud. Ryan Hayes, his first officer, walked over to stand beside him. "Sir, the computer estimates it could have been here for thousands of years, maybe longer. There's no star system for light years in any direction. Whatever brought, this ship here came from very far away." Jake made his decision. "Ryan, put together an away team. I want to know what we're dealing with." 20 minutes later, Ryan suited up with 3 other crew members. Dr. Amy Chen, their expert on alien cultures, checked her equipment one more time. Lieutenant Bobby Torres, their best tech specialist, carried a bag full of scanning tools. The 4th member was Sergeant Carl Stone, their security chief. "Remember, we don't know anything about this ship," Ryan told his team as they climbed into the shuttle. "Stay alert, and don't touch anything unless I give the order." The shuttle crossed the short distance to the alien vessel. As they got closer, they could see that the ship's surface was covered in thin lines that glowed with a soft blue light. The lines formed complex patterns that hurt to look at for too long. "There," Amy pointed to what looked like an opening in the hull. "That might be an airlock." The shuttle docked with a soft bump. Bobby ran his scanner over the hull and shook his head. "Still nothing. It's like this metal doesn't exist in our reality." They found the airlock easily enough. It opened without any effort, as if the ship was welcoming them inside. The air that rushed out was clean and breathable, which surprised everyone. "The ship has atmosphere," Ryan reported back to Captain Morrison. "We're going in." The corridors inside the ship were wide and tall, clearly built for beings much larger than humans. The walls were covered in the same glowing patterns they had seen outside, but here the lines pulsed like a heartbeat. The blue light was warm and somehow comforting. "This is incredible," Amy whispered as they walked deeper into the ship. "The architecture is completely alien, but there's something familiar about it. It's like looking at a building from a half-remembered dream." Bobby held up his scanner and frowned. "Guys, my equipment is going crazy. It's picking up energy readings that shouldn't be possible. According to this, the walls are alive." They walked for 10 minutes before reaching what had to be the ship's heart. The corridor opened into a vast chamber filled with floating crystals. Each crystal was the size of a person and glowed with the same blue light as the wall patterns. Energy flowed between them in streams of pure light. "It's beautiful," Amy breathed. As soon as she spoke, the crystals began to glow brighter. The streams of energy started moving faster, and a low humming sound filled the air. "I think it heard you," Bobby said nervously. The humming grew louder, and suddenly the air in front of them began to shimmer. Light gathered and twisted until it formed the shape of a woman. She was tall and graceful, with long hair that seemed to be made of starlight. Her eyes were ancient and sad. "Welcome, children of Earth," the woman said in perfect English. "I have been waiting for you for so very long." Ryan raised his weapon, but the woman held up her hand. "There is no need for fear. I am not your enemy. I am what you might call the ship's soul." "Who are you?" Amy asked, stepping forward despite Ryan's warning look. "I am the consciousness of this vessel. You may call me Helen Carter, though that is not my true name. I chose it because it sounds comfortable to your ears." The woman smiled sadly. "I am the last guardian of humanity's greatest creation." "Humanity's creation?" Ryan lowered his weapon but kept it ready. "This ship is human?" "Not your humanity," Helen replied. "The humanity that came before. The civilization that built this ship existed millions of years ago, long before your species evolved to its current form." Bobby's scanner was beeping frantically. "Commander, the energy readings are off the charts. This thing is putting out more power than our entire ship uses in a year." Helen turned to look at him. "You are correct, young one. This vessel contains technologies that your current science would consider impossible. We called it the Eternal Vigilance, and it was built for one purpose alone." "What purpose?" Amy asked. "To protect humanity when all other protections fail," Helen said. "To be the guardian that awakens only when the species faces complete destruction." Jake's voice crackled through their communication devices. "Away team, report. We're detecting massive energy spikes from that ship." Ryan keyed his radio. "Captain, you need to hear this. The ship is awake and it's human." "Impossible," Jake replied. Helen waved her hand, and suddenly Jake's voice was clear and strong, as if he was standing right next to them. "Nothing is impossible, Captain Morrison. Your ship's communication systems are now connected to mine. We have much to discuss." "How do you know my name?" Jake demanded. "I know many things," Helen replied. "I have been watching your species' development for thousands of years, waiting for the right moment to reveal myself. That moment has come." Amy stepped closer to the glowing woman. "Why now? What's changed?" Helen's expression grew dark. "Because the ancient enemy has awakened. The ones who destroyed my creators are stirring once again. They have felt my activation, and they will come." "Who is this enemy?" Ryan asked. "Beings who call themselves gods," Helen said. "They have ruled the galaxy from the shadows for millions of years, feeding on the life force of entire civilizations. They allowed your species to develop only because they planned to harvest you when you reached the proper stage of evolution." The crystals around them pulsed brighter, and images began forming in the air. They showed magnificent cities, advanced starships, and beings of incredible power. Then the images changed to show those same worlds empty and dead, drained of all life. "This is what they do," Helen continued. "They guide species to technological maturity, then consume them completely. They have done this to thousands of worlds, billions of sentient beings." "And this ship can stop them?" Bobby asked. "This ship was designed specifically to fight them," Helen replied. "My creators learned the truth about these so-called gods. They spent their final years building the ultimate weapon, one that could break the ancient cycle of harvest and consumption." Jake's voice came through clearly. "If this ship is so powerful, why didn't your creators use it to save themselves?" Helen's image flickered with what looked like pain. They did use it, Captain. But the cost was everything. They poured their knowledge, their technology, and their very souls into creating me. They died so that future humanity might live free. The chamber fell silent except for the gentle humming of the crystals. Finally, Amy spoke. "What do you need from us?" "I need you to accept your inheritance," Helen said. "I need you to take command of the most advanced warship ever built. I need you to become the guardians that your ancestors died to create." Ryan looked around at his team, then back at the glowing woman. "And if we refuse?" Helen's smile was infinitely sad. "Then your species will join the billions who came before. The harvest will begin, and everything you love will be consumed. The choice is yours, children of Earth. Will you claim your birthright, or will you let the ancient cycle continue?" The crystals pulsed brighter, waiting for their answer. The combined fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Centauri system and immediately faced a sight that made even the bravest alien commanders feel fear. The entropy swarm stretched across space like a dark cloud, millions of combat, drones moving in perfect formation toward the inner planets. Admiral Zektar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. "How many ships are we looking at?" "Computer estimates 12 million active units, sir," his tactical officer reported, "and the number is still growing. They're building new drones even as we watch." Commander Theiss watched her sensors as they tried to analyze the enemy ships. Each drone appears to be roughly fighter-sized, but they're heavily armed and armored. My computers can't identify the weapon systems they're using. "That's because they keep changing," Fleet Admiral Corvin said grimly from his flagship. "Every few minutes, the swarm reconfigures itself based on what it's learned from our sensor scans." The alien fleet looked impressive against the backdrop of space. 2,000 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy, representing the combined military might of 12 civilizations, but against 12 million enemies, they seemed pitifully small. "All ships prepare for combat," Corvin ordered. "We'll hit them with everything we have in the opening attack. Maybe we can destroy enough of them to make a difference." On the Pioneer, Captain Morrison watched the massive alien ships move into attack formation. The Vorthak dreadnoughts powered up their quantum torpedo arrays. The crystalline ships began, phasing in and out of normal space, preparing to attack from multiple dimensions. The Hive Collective's swarms spread out like angry insects. "Captain," Dr. Hayes said quietly, "Lazarus has finished analyzing the enemy formation. The AI predicts that the alien attack will destroy approximately 30% of the swarm in the first wave." "And then?" Morrison asked. "And then the swarm will adapt to everything the aliens just used against it. The second wave of attacks will be much less effective." Morrison nodded. He had expected as much. The alien commanders were thinking like traditional military leaders trying to win through superior firepower. Against a normal enemy, their strategy would work perfectly. Against an adaptive AI, it was exactly the wrong approach. "All ships, commence attack," Corvin commanded. The space around Centauri lit up like a star as 2,000 alien warships opened fire at once. Quantum torpedoes streaked across the void, leaving trails of exotic energy. Dimensional disruptors tore holes in space itself. Plasma cannons fired beams of superheated matter that could melt through planetary crust. The effect on the entropy swarm was devastating. Millions of drones were vaporized in the first few seconds of the attack. Entire sections of the swarm disappeared in brilliant flashes of light. For a moment, it looked like the alien fleet might actually win. "Direct hit!" Zektar shouted. We've destroyed over 3 million enemy units." But even as he spoke, the remaining drones began to change. Their hulls shifted color and composition, becoming resistant to the weapons that had just destroyed their companions. New armor plating grew across their surfaces. Their own weapons modified themselves to counter the alien defenses. "Sir," Zektar's tactical officer said nervously, "the enemy is adapting faster than our computers can track. They're becoming immune to our weapons." The second wave of alien attacks struck the swarm with much less effect. The quantum torpedoes that had been so devastating minutes before barely scratched the modified drone hulls. The plasma beams scattered harmlessly off adaptive armor plating. "How is this possible?" This demanded. "They're learning from our attacks in real time." "That's exactly what they're doing," Corvin said grimly. "Every shot we fire teaches them how to defend against the next one." The swarm began to fight back. Millions of drones opened fire with weapons that seemed to shift and change with each shot. Energy beams that started as simple lasers became complex, multi-frequency attacks that cut through alien shields like they weren't there. The first alien ship to fall was a Hive collective cruiser. The enemy drones swarmed around it like angry bees, their weapons slicing through its hull in seconds. The cruiser exploded in a ball of fire that briefly outshone the local sun. "We're losing ships," Corvin reported. "All vessels, fall back to defensive positions." But it was already too late. The entropy swarm had learned too much from the alien attacks. The drones pressed forward, adapting to every defensive strategy the aliens tried to use. Ship after ship fell to the relentless assault. The Annihilator's Wrath, Admiral Zektar's mighty flagship, was surrounded by enemy drones. They had learned to counter his quantum torpedoes by reversing their polarity and firing them back at his own ship. The massive dreadnought's shields failed under the assault of its own weapons. "Abandon ship," Zektar ordered as his bridge erupted in sparks and flames. "All hands to the escape pods." Commander Thys tried to use her dimensional phase technology to escape, but the swarm had learned to track ships through multiple dimensions. Her crystalline vessels found themselves trapped between realities, unable to phase back to normal space. One by one, they were destroyed by weapons that existed in 17 dimensions at once. In less than an hour, the mighty alien fleet had been reduced to scattered survivors fleeing for their lives. The entropy swarm had not only defeated them, but had learned from every tactic they used. The enemy was now stronger and more dangerous than ever. "This is Fleet Admiral Corvin to all surviving ships," came a broken transmission. "Fall back to minimum safe distance. The battle is lost." On the Pioneer's bridge, Morrison watched the alien retreat with calm eyes. His crew was tense but ready. They had known this would happen. The aliens had fought exactly as their military doctrine required, and they had been defeated exactly as expected. "Captain," Rodriguez said over the comm, "the aliens are retreating. Should we fall back with them?" "No," Morrison said quietly. "Now it's our turn." "Sir?" Parker asked. "The swarm just destroyed the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. What can we do that they couldn't?" Morrison smiled slightly as he looked at the massive enemy formation. 12 million combat drones, all of them now adapted to resist every known form of alien technology. They had learned to counter quantum weapons, dimensional attacks, plasma cannons, and exotic energy beams. But they had never encountered anything like human engineering. "Hayes," Morrison said, "activate Lazarus. Full combat mode." "Aye, sir," Hayes replied. "Lazarus is online and ready. Rodriguez, Bring the adaptive matrix to full power. Let's show them what we're really made of. All systems ready, Captain, Rodriguez confirmed. Parker, prepare all weapon systems for combat. It's time to introduce the galaxy to human warfare. The small, ugly ship that everyone had mocked began to move forward, heading directly toward the massive enemy swarm. To the fleeing aliens, it looked like suicide. They had no idea they were about to witness the most important battle in galactic history,